That camera that you're about to buy, it's not gonna fix your footage. And deep down inside, you already know that. I've been behind the camera for over 20 years, from ESPN to BET to Independent Lens, and I still shoot most of my paid work on mid-tier camera bodies. Today, I'm gonna show you the trap that keeps filmmakers broke and distracted, the system that's engineered to keep you buying, what's actually holding back your footage, and the framework that tells you exactly when upgrading makes sense. And at the very end of all of this, I'm gonna give you the exact number of years your camera should last based on what you paid for it. That number is going to change how you think about every gear decision you make. You need to stop upgrading, and you need to start operating. What's going on, world? I'm Eric D. Seals, documentary director and DP, and today we're talking about why upgrading your camera won't level up your career and what actually will. So this is a trap that I've seen almost every filmmaker I know, including myself, get caught up into from time to time. And it just happens because we are also just nerds and we like to buy new cameras and new gear and we like new features. And so it's to no surprise that we always want the latest technology that has come out, but that can get you into a situation where you're caught in debt. And that's something that happened to me early in my career. And this doesn't just happen to early filmmakers, this happens to the pros as well. And this is something that we need to talk about so we can understand why we're trying to upgrade our cameras so often. So for some people, their reel isn't improving, and so they buy new equipment instead of working on their skills. For some of the mid-tier pros making money, they get caught up in a trap and they're already doing very well with the equipment they have, but they sometimes think that that upgrade is gonna take them to the next level, and sometimes they just have a bigger expense. And then you have the new filmmakers who think better cameras equal a shortcut to better work. So we're gonna break this down into 4 different levels. So level 1, the trap. Level 2, the machine that we're all in. Level 3, the real problem. And level 4, the framework. Let's get into it. If you're a filmmaker trying to make better work, not just buy better gear, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. So let me tell you about one of the worst purchases I've ever made, and it was early in my career. I just got my first big boy job. I was working at ESPN, and I knew I wanted to freelance, and I was convinced that broadcast gear meant professional credibility. So I went into debt, heavy debt, and bought honestly the most expensive camera that I could at the time, and that was a Panasonic HPX 300. And that camera cost me everything that I had in that, whatever that credit limit was. I maxed it out because I knew I was going to be able to get more work because this was a professional camera. What I didn't realize at the time is that you're not going to get more work just because you have a camera. I thought if I have this camera, people are going to be calling me left and right. If you look at my camera wall and all the cameras that I have access to over the years that have been retired, it's the one that I use the least, but it taught me the most. One thing that I learned with that Panasonic really quickly is that expensive camera that I bought became obsolete because the industry moved in a different direction. I was reacting to purchasing a camera based off of what was happening previously, not what was happening in the future, because you don't want to buy old technology. Even if it is a new camera, it still could be old technology. I like to blame the camera on a regular basis, but it wasn't the camera that was the issue. It was me, my talent. At that time, it was underdeveloped and I needed to work on being a better cam op or a DP. That hands down was my wake up call, and I was never going to make that mistake again. But what I didn't understand was I wasn't just bad with the money decision that I made, I was being played. And some of you are being played as well, you just don't know it. So let me show you how the machine works that's been running the game this whole entire time. Camera companies are not in the business of making you better. We think they are, but they're in the business of selling cameras. And if you're satisfied, they lose. So you have to keep in mind that they engineered a system to make sure you're never satisfied with the current camera that you have. Or if you were satisfied, we're gonna show you why you need to upgrade because this new camera has a piece or a new option that you don't have. So why is it that the lower tier cameras and even some of the mid-tier cameras are being replaced every year, if not every 18 months? That's not a sales schedule, that's not innovation, it's because they need to keep selling product. Broadcast cameras from 2016 are still in use today. The Amira is a great example of that, and they don't refresh those on a regular basis. So I almost see that there's almost a price point where if you're below this price point, we're gonna replace that camera on a regular basis because this is serving a certain type of level or career or audience. But maybe because they know the higher end Filmmakers, the people who can afford the more expensive cameras, understand that you don't have to repurchase a new camera every time something new comes out. Or the other thought is, a lot of these higher end cameras are at rental houses anyway, and we know rental companies are not buying it unless it makes sense on the P&L, profit and loss statement. You know what I mean? Companies holding back features to roll them out over several generations is something that happens on a regular basis. When we see the Mark II or Mark III cycle, these small changes that happen over time, and we feel like it's so revolutionary, but you really just find out that it's a software update that they could have done in the previous camera that you already own. And see, this is the thing. They know we love cameras, and they know that we're always looking at buying that one feature. Like, if I get this one camera, if it films in 422, or if it films in 10-bit, or if it films in RAW, or I can get 32-bit float, this is going to change my career dramatically. And the truth is, it's not. All cameras are genuinely good now, and cameras are really at a point where they're saturated, meaning that there's not a big difference from the one that came out previously. The real difference is not branding, it's not the camera body, it's you. Know that camera companies using embargoes and launch day hype, they're designed for people that are new in the industry. You have all these videos that come out on YouTube and everybody feels like this is the latest, greatest thing that has come out. They don't target filmmakers who are looking at $25,000 plus cameras. They target people who are in the low thousands because they know that that's a market of people who are trying to level up. And if you want to eventually get to that $25,000 or $50,000 camera, you can find your ladder by buying these small upgrades, but you don't realize that you're actually in the trap, and that's going to keep you from getting to these larger cameras that are going to make a big difference because you're always buying the latest one that comes out. You really don't need that. I almost blame YouTube to a certain degree. For a long time, I utilized it for research to find out what other people were doing, what equipment was coming out. But then as I watched it, I started to realize that every 6 months, you have the whatever killer, which is a horrible term, but like, this camera is gonna kill the FX6 or the FX3 or the C300 Mark II. Realistically, none of it is going to do that. It's just that people are going for clicks and people are going for telling you that if you don't have the C500 Mark II, then you're not gonna be a real filmmaker. And that's just not the truth. And so you have to start to decipher between what are good, genuine reviews for content and cameras, the equipment. And there are many channels out there who do a fantastic job, but then there are some channels where if you look at all of the videos from the last 2 or 3 years, every 6 months, this is the latest camera, and this is the best thing, or I'm selling all of my equipment and I'm getting this, or I'm no longer using this and I'm using that. It's all BS. Experienced filmmakers don't feel the need for a new camera every year, or even sometimes 5 years. They know that working on their craft or their marketing is what makes a big difference. But they do understand that the marketing of these companies target newer filmmakers and hobbyists. It's not that the system is broken. The system is working exactly how it's supposed to. What we don't realize is that when we watch these videos online and YouTube and all this different content, you need to start asking yourself who is paying for that, because it's not by coincidence that all of these cameras are being released at the same time. For a long time, I thought that, oh man, everybody's just releasing them at the same time, but this is clearly the next camera that I need to get. But that's not necessarily the case. The sooner that you know that, the sooner you can start making better decisions, not based off of marketing, but based off of what you actually need for your career. All right, so now you know the game, but here's the part nobody wants to hear. Even if you never buy another camera again, your footage still might not get better because the camera was never the problem. Let me show you what is. There's so many factors that you need to consider when you're looking at what makes your footage better than other people's, or what makes your footage better than yours back in the day. The lighting and the shape of light before you even touch the camera is gonna make a big difference. Your settings are gonna make a big difference in how you're utilizing them in different scenarios. This is one of the biggest gaps that a lot of people don't consider because they think it's just the camera making the difference. Then you have verite instincts, reading rooms and anticipating moments. This takes years to master. Every frame should be a decision that you make knowing that it's going to help push the story forward. And then comes the story itself. No camera is going to fix a weak story. but we think it is. And so that's why it's very important for you to understand there's many factors that go into what makes your footage look different. And sometimes you think it's the camera upgrade because that's the easy fix. But honestly, there's many other factors that you need to be considering. Something that I wish I understood earlier is that your skills are gonna transfer to every camera that you're ever gonna touch, but your gear will not do the same. So if the camera isn't the problem, does that mean you should never upgrade? No, not at all. You definitely still need to upgrade. But there is a right way and a wrong way to do it and a right time to do it. And I have a framework that makes decisions for you that can help you out. You need to ask yourself these 3 questions. That's it. Can you name a specific shot or job your current camera cannot do? So a new feature you saw online is not a limitation. A real limitation blocks actual work. Question number 2, is your camera broken, failing, or unreliable on paid jobs? That's an easy one. Wear and tear counts. Wanting something new does not. Question number 3, with the money that you're gonna invest in that camera, would it be better spent if you invested it into yourself? A $3,000 camera upgrade versus a lighting kit, a workshop, or 3 more days to shoot something might go further than just having that new body that just came out. And then shifting this for some of my working pros, because sometimes you might have to ask yourself a different question, but are the clients requesting a specific body that you don't own? That makes it a business decision. Is there rental demand proving a market value? So it gets to a point where if I get this camera, then the amount of jobs that I'm gonna be on it where I can rent it out is gonna buy the camera itself. Well, that makes a lot of sense. You sometimes don't know if the camera that you bought was the correct purchase until years later. The more you go through purchasing cameras over the years, you'll start to identify what you need versus what you want and what's gonna be better for your career. 3 questions, that's the whole framework. Your work's going to look different, not because your gear changed, but because your thinking did. So now remember, at the top of this video, I said, I'm gonna give you the exact number of years your camera should last, and here it is. And it might surprise you a little bit. All right, so for this first range, $25,000, that camera should easily last you 9+ years. And the truth is there's not too many cameras that fit in this market. There's a lot of cameras that are more expensive or less expensive. You know, we have the Burano that's in that ballpark. The C500 was close to it at a certain time. The C700, which I'm sorry, but nobody bought. But essentially, your camera should easily last almost a decade. These are cameras that are gonna be rental workhorses, and studios are not gonna replace these on a regular basis. So then you have the 10 to 15K range, which a lot of the cameras that we use fall into this range. That easily should last you at least 4 to 5 years, and at the top end, it can go up to 8. But some of these are gonna go longer than that. But this is the sweet spot. These are not being replaced every year. Even the camera manufacturers know that these are people who are really serious about their career and their job, and they're not gonna be buying a new camera every year. So then you drop down a little bit. So the cameras between $3,000 to almost $10,000. These cameras are gonna have a little shorter lifespan, not because they're not capable, but then they start getting replaced. And so this is a 3-year mark that a lot of people will see on these mid-tier cameras. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to be 3 years. They can be much longer, but you'll start to see that they're coming out with a Mark II in different versions and different capabilities, or another camera manufacturer is coming out with a competitor that might make you want to switch. So again, once you start getting lower in the price range, you start to see that they get replaced more. And so then you have the last tier, which is under 3,000, and honestly, you're gonna outgrow this camera relatively fast, and this is a camera that they're almost gonna come out with almost every year at this point because they want you to keep buying cameras. I'd almost suggest for people to get that tier that we just talked about. A used version from a couple of years ago might serve you better because the value of it has dropped dramatically, and you're gonna get all the tools you need so that you can get out there and tell a story. And especially when we're talking about documentaries, you don't need the camera that just came out. As long as it has a good mount for a lens, it's got a good body, you can have time code, and you can run XLRs in there, and you might be able to put a monitor on top. You can rig it up a little bit. You're good to go. You don't need to have the camera that just came out this year. So that's it, that's the math. The camera companies don't want you to see it that way because that means you're gonna be buying less, not more. Amateurs default to new gear and hope it makes their work better. Professionals choose their tools because every decision is a storytelling decision. The operator matters more than the body, every single time. I'm Eric D. Seals. Do me the favor of keep telling stories that matter.